I probably will have to shift back towards. I'm working late nights and also early mornings.
Ah, not an
So
easy combination.
yeah. And so most people I used to work for all these years, it was always Pacific time.
Mm, mm.
I put up with it for almost like 2 decades, and then took a break. Now I'm slowly getting back into the routine with the company. I've made a US hire.
Okay.
Thank, Thankfully, the first hire is in on the Eastern time, so it makes
Oh,
it easier. But as we grow, we'll have Pacific time again, so the routine starts.
I know, I know. Sometimes it feels like it's in the middle of the day when you have all the free time. Just
Yeah.
I'd also asked one of my colleagues, Pratap, who wanted to listen into this chat to join in if he can. So he may be joining in any moment, just so you know
Sure,
that he's part of the Gramix team as well.
sure.
Would love to hear from you, Sridhar, what Sandeep had shared and what specifically I can share about Gramix itself.
Uh, Sandeep has not shared much at all. Actually, it was Naveen who sent out an email uh, asking for looking at SaaS journey, and he wanted some inputs or thoughts for what.
Got you. Fair enough. In
Yeah,
that case,
yeah.
I'd love to do this. Okay, there's Pratap. Hey, Pratap.
Hey Anand, hi Sridhar.
So,
Morning.
what I'll do is start by sharing a presentation which summarizes what we see as Gramix's positioning, and would love to hear your thoughts on one. What are the kinds of metrics you would suggest for such an initiative? And secondly, uh, what are the levers for scaling that you see? Overall, it's we'd love to hear what you see that we could be doing differently that will make a difference. So,
Okay, okay.
let me open the presentation. Just a second.
No worries.
Yeah, I am just sharing my screen.
Sure.
Oh, this is a slightly old one. Just a second. This may be the, yeah. Let me, yeah, start with this. Uh, so, for Gramner itself, our focus is on insights as stories. And what we do is build vertical solutions, customized solutions. And these aim to deliver insights as stories from data. And the way we do this is using Gramix, which we see as a low code platform, something that accelerates both from a speed and a cost perspective, delivering these vertical solutions. Now, the reason we see this as having a market is because almost 5/6 of the enterprise data budget goes into building these custom solutions, as opposed to, say, only the 1/6 that goes into the package solutions budget. And from a time perspective, it takes 6 to 18 months. Cost wise, these initiatives, each of these take around half a mil to 2 mil, and typically require specialized skills, either a combination or a breadth that is hard to achieve. And part of the trade off is because, on the one hand, package solutions are fast. So, any BI or data science tool is able to deliver something rapidly, but not with the kind of flexibility that people need, which is why they end up going in for languages. But that has the disadvantage of speed. And the space that's evolving is the low code platform space, where a citizen developer is able to build an application rapidly without losing flexibility, meaning you go in and write the code where required and only focus on the areas that you need to focus on. And Gramix is a low code data solution specifically. The intent being be faster than a package tool and be more flexible than a package tool and faster than programming from a library. And we took a few benchmarks for the projects that we've been doing to see what is the number of lines of code that is reduced, what is the number of days of effort that is reduced, and therefore what is the effort reduction. And we have estimates anywhere from a 5x reduction in the case of Delta Airlines, for example, to something like a 25x reduction in the case of Dr. Reddy's, or in World Bank, they basically said we never have been able to do this. And these are code bases which built an application with anywhere from around 200 to 300 odd lines. Sorry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, what is not clear in this, is it okay if I were
Please.
so intentionally putting a devil's advocate's hat on and sharing a perspective for whatever it's worth, Anand. So what's not clear to me on this is that in my mind, Mendix is more about simplistic applications that I would build on a application platform as a service, right?
Correct.
LCAP or whatever. Yeah? Now, SnapLogic is a tool that I have always associated with ETL. SnapLogic, Boomi, all of those are Informatica on demand. Those, I don't know if SnapLogic has built a LCAP platform now. I don't know. I've used it almost a long time ago. Then we have the BI, and then we have on the left we have libraries for basically programming language. So you could basically build anything. Now, how these are like different tools with the intent being different. No, I would not use a Tableau for what a Mendix can do. These are not even comparable solutions. So it seems like it's an apples to oranges comparison to an outsider.
Got you. Noted. And that is helpful. So our proposition is that it's possible to build a custom application much faster. How would any thoughts or ideas on how we might position this?
So essentially, what not saying the product, but I'm assuming that you could build your own data models and you can build applications, mini applications, like you could do on Salesforce, for example. Plus, you have a visualization layer on top of it. A BI engine where drag and drop UI, where you could construct visualizations. Is that reasonably close enough?
We are not yet fully there, but yes, that is exactly the end state.
Okay. So in which case you're really talking about it's not comparison, but it's more of addition, more of consolidation. You could create your own applications, and also you could create your own visualizations on top of it. And in the application that you create, we have ETL capabilities wherein I could bring in data from your data sources wherever they exist and bring it into the into our applications, and then we can visualize on that. Is that what the flow is? Is that the reason why SnapLogic is there?
And to be fair, SnapLogic and Mendix we see in the low-code space, and SnapLogic has entered the low-code space, but not necessarily overlapping with what Gramix does. So putting together, for example, the connection to data and making whatever transformations are required, whatever analyses are required, and whatever visual rendering is based on that data set or the analyzed data set is the part. Yes.
Yeah. So within BI, Anand, like as you know, positioning and messaging is everything in terms of how well people are able to connect to what we're saying, right? I'm struggling with that in terms of how do I differentiate in sales tech, which is so crowded. Almost all phrases are taken. So trying to go through that exercise, trying to bring some of that learning here. If I look at the data science space and the BI tool space. BI itself has become way too broad, way too generic. Now, within that, there are companies like Looker and Sisu Data. There's another company that I was talking to the other day, where they're trying to bring in natural language queries coming into the picture, where you could query the data and uncovers the insights that are hidden in the data. That's the pitch. Are you familiar with Sisu Data?
I'm not, but I've heard of a few other organizations that are taking a similar pitch.
Yeah. So, yeah, do you want to look at Looker or
Looker, I'm
yes?
familiar with, but Sisu Data, you said.
Yeah, Sisu Data is relatively new. I think it's one of the professors from Stanford started it, if I recall correct.
Got you.
So they're basically talking about understanding or getting the insights from data. So that's a very specific positioning that people are going after. So within BI, there are differentiation between what is more about drag and drop report builders with visualizations and dashboards and so on. That's where the Tableaus of the world or Burst or the many tools, as you know. These are the newer generation of products. Sisu Data or Looker, these kinds of companies. Then you have the data science products. These are data science workbench products which are really focused in terms of for data scientists. How do I make it easy for them to build pipelines and get the data and create feature extraction out of that and building models and publishing it on the platform. The products which are really focused on that also.
Got you. And here, what I hear you say is this seems to be covering the breadth and without a differentiation with compared to any of the specialists in the individual areas.
Correct.
Clearly, without the muzzle of the players that are covering the breadth, obviously, because we're tiny.
Yeah. Yeah. So if the intent is to explain to an outsider, an investor, in terms of why they should invest in Gramex or things like that, the picture is not clear in terms of how are these various pieces, which in my mind are separate categories. They're not adjacent categories; they're separate categories in my mind.
Got you.
And I see all of them in one picture. And the comparison in a way to an outsider, it doesn't obviously make sense. It's not very clear to me on in the beginning. And the definition of the solution, probably when I go to the right, so you're talking about let's say 6.6x ROI. I'm interpreting it as, let's say I built I spent $1 million on Gramex or 100K, whatever, and I'm getting 6.6 million. If it's a million is the spend.
Yeah.
And I'm getting that kind of a return in 4 days and with 230 lines of code. I mean, sounds too good to be true.
Got you.
Again, to an outsider, it might 100% be accurate, but it probably needs more like a case study format as opposed to putting in a table.
Got you.
This was a problem statement, and this was the status quo, and this is what we did. And hey, by the way, we delivered. This was the investment, and this is the ROI that they've gotten. Probably that would make it, they get the complete story.
Got you.
Yeah.
Which is there. So actually, let's take a minute to see. I think we had version of that at one of the. Let's see if I have the latest version of that. Yeah, this this was the 25x1. So actually, let me not even read through it. I'll just pause here and oh, sorry, no, not this one. This is the wrong one. Let's take this one. Yeah.
So reading this, Anand, probably if you were to say the BI visualization side of the world was compared to that, your models is where the crux is in terms of the core value delivery.
On this particular case study, yes. Let's proceed on that. Yes.
So in which case, that's in the talk track, that's not coming out clearly.
Got you.
So it's is this an AML company? Is it a visualization company? Is it a low code platform? Low code platform is kind of trivialized. There are way too many companies in low code platforms. Way too many companies, and there are large companies also operating in that same thing. And at some point in time within GTM, but also we'll have some capabilities around that within Gainsight. The capabilities. Every company is going down that road. So any enterprise software company is building some capabilities of customizability and extensibility to the data model. And when I add new objects, data objects, I can render that in UI, and I can report on the data that exists in the data model that I've created. That's become like basic 101 for enterprise software.
Got you.
So that probably is not where the real value that you're bringing to the table. Looking at this, it seems like the models that you're building has identified the gaps has uncovered the gaps that were not seen before. And by the way, we also have awesome visualizations that presents and educates the end user on those gaps, on those insights.
Got you. You're saying that would be a sharper proposition than the generic. Either we play in the low-code platform space, which is commoditized, or we play in the BI space or the analytics space. Let me play this back and check if I've understood you properly. So, you're saying, look, take a set of algorithms, tightly couple them with the awesome visuals that convey their power well, and play in that space where you say, here are a class of analytical problems that you solve with solid algorithms and powerful visualizations. That is your space, rather than BI, which is self-service exploration, or data science workbench, which is self-service analytical exploration, or low code.
Yeah. This one simplistic company that I had come across in the past. Are you familiar with a company called BigML?
I've heard of them. I've been to their website as well.
So this company is so I shared the link also.
Yeah.
So I had interviewed one of their team members long time ago, but it has not really taken off in a big way. But essentially, what they're talking about, they would take in data, very simple assumptions in terms of the complex ETL is not possible. They had built some interesting visualizations, and they would create a decision tree out of the data that's given, and a nice visualization to go with it. So basically, if I were a data scientist, I don't really understand the programming aspect of it. I get the data, and I could get the data into this product, and I could build nice analytics visualization out of this.
Got you.
Very simplistic product.
Got you.
There are much more complicated versions of this which are coming along. There's one other company out of UK that I was actually one of my ex-teammates used to work for them, which is solving building solutions for retail vertical. And they build their own data pipelines for each. They work with companies like Target and fairly large companies. And they build the data pipelines for them and do the feature engineering. And they build models for that particular company for specific problems that they're trying to solve for. So they position themselves as an ML workbench, or I need to look up the phrase that they use. You may want to see, like, there are three categories that I've heard. One being a low-code platform, two as a BI company, three as a ML AI ML platform. Now, out of all of these three, if you want to be in BI, LCAP is commoditized. BI, there are two distinctions that are emerging. One is more of traditional BI versus more of BI tools that support natural language queries. They're focusing on insights and all of that, not pretty dashboards. That's the second category. And that category is emerging and doing well. Looks like that. And then there is this AML workbench, where it has elements of visualization on it. It has ETL, data transformations, feature engineering, publishing models, and all of that. Which of these categories do you want to play in, or how do you want to connect all of them together? Is something that
Got you.
you consider.
Actually, I'd love to take your advice on this, Sridhar. Let me share with you a few examples of the kind of work that we do and where our strength lies. So, let me take, for example, what I'll do is go through this very quickly without
Sure.
going into. I want to give you 3 or 4 examples to give a flavor. So, when the Singapore Health Promotion Board said we want to figure out how exactly we cluster our citizens. What happened here? Let's take another one. Brilliant. Okay. This doesn't work. Let me take another one. Take quarterly service requests and let me take photo search and take it's okay. So this was the solution that you saw earlier, where we said we'll help you identify through our algorithm what is your biggest cause of delay in processing service requests. And it turns out that the division, the customer, the entity that sends the request has a bigger impact than who processes it, which region you process it in or which country you process it in. And your major problem is the reverse flows, not the forward flows which are on top. In other words, the effectiveness rather than efficiency is your problem. This was a case of a niche algorithm that applies across a wide variety of areas being visualized in a specific way. Another example is where we again identified what are the top causes for students' marks being improved. Turns out that the parents' occupation and education is a much bigger factor than any others across subjects, allowing people to then explore single factors and seeing what is the impact of watching TV, for example, on reading. Turns out that if you read more, then you end up scoring more, oddly enough, but in reading. But in maths, if you watch more TV, then you end up scoring a lot less. So watching TV's impact varies across subjects. Or let's take another example where we try and see, for example, is there a network of connectivity across different kinds of cities? So let's say Bangalore and Singapore. Uh, and cluster these based on supposed to Singapore. Yeah, should have been a space, I think. Yeah. And cluster these and see where exactly the dominant clusters are falling in. So this will eventually stabilize. And it allows us to see two things. So, for example, there are a few people that are acting as connectors between Bangalore and Singapore. All the blues are Bangaloreans, all the oranges are Singaporeans. And a person like Shivam Verma, who's actually in Singapore, is more tightly connected to the Bangalore developers. A person like Christoph Bergmer, who's in Singapore, seems to be more tightly connected to the Bangalore developers. And identify these edge connectors between these. And the cluster analysis that didn't work out was a similar one. Here's another one where the algorithm is trying to find out what is the impact of a particular type of intervention on efficiency of or on cargo delay from the time when the flight lands to when the cargo reaches the warehouse. It turns out that evening shifts are doing okay, night shifts are doing quite well, Fridays are doing quite bad, Wednesdays are doing quite well. Fragile items, which is ZTH, are not doing quite well. And particularly fragile items, when shipped less than 20% full, they are moving really slowly. But the same fragile items, when they are shipped 60 to 80% full, are doing quite well. Now, what is the impact if I increase the number of trained staff to 6 or 7 or 8? And what will happen to my service levels if I reduce it through a simulation? These are examples of the kinds of work that A, we do well, and B, our clients have really enjoyed. Where would you say this fits?
Yeah, uh, very very interesting problems and very diverse as well, right? What is the common factor behind all of this work that you shared on? That's what Gramex is. I'm assuming.
Analysis patterns and uh, uh, analysis specific visualizations. By analysis pattern, I mean you find that certain ways of analyzing the data systematically that combine the standard analysis algorithms, they tend to be powerful. And specific ways, each type of these analysis patterns have specific representations associated with them. So I'm taking my gut feel shot at the answer to your question. I'm sure there are many other ways it's possible to answer your question and improve upon the answer. So, but this was the first thing that came to my mind, and I'd love to improve or pivot from this. But it's patterns of analysis backed by analysis-specific visualizations.
Okay, that's the common denominator. Patterns of analysis and visualizations based on the analysis done. Okay. So where does visualizations maps back to some part of BI, let's say? Where does the aspect of low code platforms come into this?
So Gramex actually is not in a stage where these can be created very easily. And while these are the cool things that we create, there are a whole lot of applications that we build that there is a strong need for that needs to be simplified. So it's almost like this is what we build out of Gramex plus our people. And Gramex, so if I were to take a kind of Venn diagram around this, then what Gramex builds versus what our people are good at, and if we take the intersection, then let me start putting in the text. So what Gramex is good at, this is the Gramex space, and this is, that's for lack of a better word, call it the Gramner space. So what Gramex is good at is low code application development. And what Gramner is good at is insights and stories. And the point of intersection between these is somewhat small. And our aim is to take this, move it to this space so that it covers this more and more. But today, the primary thing is people want custom data solutions. Practically, kind of like productionize my BI, etc. Productionize BI or AI. And that's broadly the space Gramex makes easier. And this is largely consulting space. Get me the answer to the question. We want to really automate this.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, need to process this information now. Anand, what would be the question here? I get to that.
Where would the first question, I think, is actually for us to help to frame the answer to your question, which is what is our positioning. So to be fair, I think your question itself has given us good food for thought, Sridhar. So why don't I do this? Let me do a little bit of thinking on the positioning here from what you
Sure.
said. Get back to you with an alternate positioning and take your inputs on how that sounds. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. And I'm conscious I was hoping to get some inputs on the ways in which we should measure, but this is the more relevant question. So I'd love to iterate on this, give it a few days, see if we can come up with something that's stronger, and share that with Naveen and the others as well to see how particularly your thoughts on low code being something that's commoditized, how that resonates and how we should relook at our position.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Anand.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, Sridhar. We'll be in touch.
Have a nice day. Nice
Bye.
meeting you, Pratap. Bye now.